Wes du har, min freund. Well, if you didn't know, that was a greeting in Old English, or one of its dialects at least. So, I've got 2 degrees from English literature, and I wrote my bachelor thesis on the usage of runic letters in the books of John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, and my master's thesis I wrote on the alliterative verse used by poets of the 20th century. Other than that, I have published some articles and texts on both Old English literature and on Tolkien, and that is why news like these strike my heart very strongly, and that is why I am not going to be watching the upcoming The Lord of the Rings TV show by Amazon. I believe it is going to be made. So we could say that if I understand something, I understand Lord of the Rings. I understand Tolkien in general, and old Germanic, old European cultures, the native European cultures. And that is why I think that doing something like this is not only an insult to Tolkien, but to all Europeans in general. But first, let us check out what's going on, actually. So, the article from Bounding into Comics says, The Lord of the Rings showrunners describe franchise as epic, diverse, and filled with heart. Amazon's upcoming The Lord of the Rings showrunners G.D. Payne and Patrick McKay recently released a joint statement describing John Ronald Reuel Tolkien's fantasy franchise as epic, diverse, and filled with heart. Now, we could of course say that this particular word refers to the fact that in Arda, which is the word for, well, earth in Tolkien, but more specifically in Middle-earth, there's a plethora of different peoples. There are, well, men, there are humans, there are elves, there are dwarves, there are hobbits. Then we've got characters of a higher origin, like Olorin here, or Gandalf, who was very close to a demigod spirit at the beginning when he came to, or before he came to Middle-earth to help the inhabitants of Middle-earth fight Sauron. And the article continues. The statement came amid a huge cast announcement that included 20 new cast members to the show. Right. Once again, right? This sounds okay. A lot of inhabitants in Middle-earth, that is why we have to cast a lot of people. A beautiful, beautiful cover of the first part of The Lord of the Rings. By the way, Tolkien first intended to publish The Lord of the Rings as one huge tome. But the publisher told him that nobody would read like a 1,400 pages long book, so it was divided into 3 parts: The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, but I'm sure you all know that. As reported by The Hollywood Reporter, Payne and McKay stated, the world that John Ronald Reuel Tolkien created is epic, diverse, as I just explained, yes, and filled with heart, which is all true. These extraordinarily talented performers, hailing from across the globe, represent the culmination of a multi-year search to find brilliant and unique artists to bring that world to life anew. As it was when the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the movie, was made. Yes, the actors came from all around the world, from Britain, from the United States of America, from New Zealand, from Europe, and so on and so forth. They added, the international cast of Amazon's The Lord of the Rings series is more than just an ensemble, it is a family. We are thrilled to welcome each of them to Middle-earth. Alright, so yeah, I do understand. Once again, a beautiful cover. In a letter numbered 142 to Father Robert Murray. Oh, and now they are citing some of the letters that Tolkien himself wrote to one of his mentors, to Father Robert Murray. And he wrote about the conception of The Lord of the Rings, but I'm not going to read it out. I'm not going to read all of it, but let's just summarize it a little bit. So, and of course, as well as from my own knowledge. So the Lord of the not only the Lord of the Rings, but the entire, saga of Arda, or Middle Earth, was began actually when Tolkien was very young, and because he was first and foremost a huge linguist. He was fascinated by languages. He loved languages above all things, and old legends and myths. And he knew languages so well and understood them so well that not only did he speak many languages, but also, as most people know, created his own artificial languages. But he was of the opinion that if you want to make a language, you need people to speak the language. So he invented the stories about elves and wolves and so on and so forth. So he has some inhabitants, so they can use the languages, right? So that's how this came to be in the end. And apart from that, there's a hint to the other part of the thing that I want to talk about. Tolkien was a very proud Englishman and a patriot. But he was fascinated and in love passionately with the old European cultures, mainly with the northern and western old European cultures, the Germanic peoples of Europe, Scandinavians, old Anglo-Saxons, and so on and so forth. So that is why he based many of his peoples in Middle-earth on these true inhabitants in Middle-earth, as well as his languages, his artificial languages, were from a huge part inspired by true languages, existing languages. So we could say that the language of the Rohirrim, the Rohan, is basically Old English. His Elvish languages were based on Finnish from a huge part, and he used runes a lot, which was a practical alphabet used by the Germanic peoples even before the first half of the first century. So we could really, really say, and it is true, it is a fact, that Tolkien's saga is a medieval high fantasy based on the ancient Europe. And the ancient Europe, by the ancient Europe, I mean earlier than 1000 AD. That is why this cast seems a bit strange to me. There's a plethora of names like Cynthia Adair Robinson, Maxim Baldry, Ian Blackburn, Kit Chapman, Anthony Crum, Maxine Cunliffe, Tristan Greville, Thusishia Jaya Sundera, all right, and Saraswago Bani. Okay, well, look at the cast now. So some of these people don't really look like they came from the ancient Europe. So, and if you look at IMDb, some of these characters are cast as elves, who are based on elves from the Norse mythology, and the looks don't really, it's not appropriate. Let's say it's not very faithful to the old myths and to facts. Let's just not talk about facts. Let's just talk about history. Let's just not talk about legends, but about facts and history. And if some of these people, some of these specific people, I'm not going to point to any one of them, are cast as elves or ancient inhabitants of a fictional representation, a fictional mirror of the ancient Europe, I am calling this an insult to myself, because I am a proud European. From my looks, I've got in my blood both Germanic and Slavic and Celtic blood, because we are all mixtures of these three, ancient European tribes, we native Europeans, Germanic peoples and Celts, Slavs, and so on and so forth. So, and because I am proud of my own personal, cultural, ethnic, and historical heritage, and because I could really talk about myself as a Tolkien expert, having several degrees, I do not agree with the casting and with the overall approach to the Amazon's Lord of the Rings show, and I'm not going to be watching it because it would only bring this to my heart and to my brain and to my soul. It would bring darkness and despair and anger. And I am trying to avoid these emotions as much as possible because they are not good for you. So what do you think, my friends? Do you share my opinion, or does your opinion differ in any way? Let me know in the comments down below, and do not forget to dislike this video if you don't like it, or like this video if you like it, and subscribe to this unimportant channel of an unimportant geek talking about unimportant things. That will be all from me. See you soon, and Namarie.